Hi, I'm Adriel Wiggins with Adriel Wiggins Author Services and Consulting, and today I am here with Brett Peterson, who is a science fiction and historic novelist. Mm-hmm. How are you today, Brett?
Really good, Adriel. Thanks. Thanks for having me on your podcast and show and things.
Thank you. Now, you can check out Brett's channel because he did an interview with me. The Business Rogue, however, is for entrepreneurs. So you will get the business side that we discussed extensively.
Absolutely.
So we'll definitely provide a link for that in the description so that you can check out a much longer chat about business.
I'm going to give some short snippets, a little bit short and sweet too. So if you just want a 5-minute summary or 5-minute best of, come check it out. We'll take care of you.
Yeah. So, which author would you say is your greatest inspiration or made you think, I could write, I could be an author?
Yeah. It's funny because for me it's come in layers. Can I give a multifaceted answer on this one? So I remember being a kid it must have been second grade. I was reading some little throwaway chapbook that was in the school library set in Moorish Spain. And I remember thinking, this is really cool. And it said super stereotypical, don't get me wrong, this is late 70s era publishing, right? So probably not politically correct now, but I thought it was awesome. And so I went home and wrote my own little Morisco story. It was really fun and interesting. So whoever that author was, that's probably the first line. Second was Ursula Le Guin. I remember my dad read A Wizard of Earthsea to us as a kid. I mean, he read Tolkien to us too, of course, but I didn't feel like after reading Tolkien I could just go write that, right?
Oh. Yeah.
But somehow Ursula Le Guin seemed more approachable. I don't know. Just a tad. So after he read to us A Wizard of Earthsea, I sat down and plotted out a novel where it was pretty much where in A Wizard of Earthsea there's a dragon. I swapped out a griffin. And it was otherwise exactly the same story. I thought that was innovative at the time.
That is how we all start.
Right. I don't think I wrote more than 300 words on that, but hey, it was a start, right?
Right.
Fast forward a little more, and I'm somewhat ashamed to admit that I probably got 20,000 words in on a Pokemon fanfic.
Can I read that?
I have no idea if I even have it anymore. I figured Pikachu was a stupid Pokemon, and Jolteon was better, and so I wrote.
I would agree with that. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. So it started with Jolteon on the journey. So there was that one. Maybe 10,000 words in, but way more than there should have been. But then fast forward 10, 20, I guess probably at least 10 years from that point. And there were two authors who pushed me into things. First was, and they were both at LTV. Mm-hmm. So chronologically, the first one was Paul Jeunesse. He was an editor. He's an author. He writes the Iron Dragon series. He's an editor as well, and he was editing the Crimson Pact stories. It's a series of anthologies. And things hunting demons, right? And so I wrote a story for him where whales hunt demons. And he liked it, but I met him at the conference. He's like, you should write a short story and submit it. So that push got me writing something, right? And so I published 2 short stories with him. I went to a college, my last semester of college then, I went to England on a study abroad. And there we had to take 3 classes. So I had one that was for my major, and I had 2 that I just needed to take for fun. And there was a short story writing class and a novel writing class. And Emma Sweeney was a professor. I think she's still a professor at Cambridge in both these fields. Did a great job with this. And she was like, okay, yeah. And so we got into how do we get to writing 2,000 words a day? How do we do these things? But then probably the one who's been most significant in having me keep at it repeatedly over the intervening 10 years has been Dave Farland, right? I know he's helped thousands of students, but I'm one of them, right? So I met him at LTUE as well. I was trying to start a publishing house, and he helped kind of walk me through how to think about publishing in terms of emotional beats and resonance and all kinds of stuff. And then I took a couple of classes from him and joined his Apex group later. And so working with him, frankly, he's one of the reasons I kept trying to write, right? I've kept at it, has been today. So that's, yeah.
And you're right. There are thousands of us who say Dave was better than Yoda, better than Obi-Wan. He was Dave, Kevin J. Anderson's words in his memorial today were spot on. So.
Yep. Can I mention one thing about Dave Farland that was amazing? Ask any one of those 1,000 people, and all of us will talk about the personal interaction we had with Dave.
How much he loved me personally.
Exactly. I can remember very specific one-on-one conversations where Dave gave me undivided attention for way more time than I deserved, and gave me a huge amount of help in those very specific interactions.
Yep.
Yeah.
several years ago at Superstars, he flew in and out of Denver, and so did I. And so I had the rental car, and he rode back with me
Nice.
to the airport. And just that hour-and-a-half conversation, we had other people in the car. To be perfectly honest, I don't remember who it was.
Right.
Because the entire conversation was me picking Dave's brain.
Right.
And he gave me his full attention. They asked questions too, but you know, he fed all of us. He took care of all of us. Yeah.
My forthcoming short story that I'm submitting to publication right now was for Writers of the Future at Dave's suggestion. Like, hey, you should send this out. And so.
Okay, so you have a short story submitted to Writers of the Future.
Received a silver honorable mention, so I can either resubmit or I'm going to try to publish it now. So that's yeah.
All right. Do you have anything else coming up?
I do. I have a series of novels, actually, a space opera series called Fierce Utopias. So the series title is Fierce Utopias. The first book is called The Cruelty of Heaven.
Okay.
But in each book in the series, I'm taking one philosophy and saying, okay, everybody has an idea of utopia, the good that we've never achieved, right? What would that look like if it was not in heaven, right? What would that look like here on earth if it played out? And they're all of them, in a mortal sense, would be pretty fierce, right? So the first one takes theology from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter Saints and twists it significantly, so it's not actually theology from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter Saints.
Right.
But so I take up the scripture. Now I know. Now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know also as I. Then shall I know as I also have known.
Yes.
Don't want to misquote the Bible.
One of my favorite verses. Go on.
Yeah, mine as well. And so I'm playing with the idea of what would it be like to live in a society where you literally know everyone else as well as yourself, and vice versa.
Right.
And so you know yourself completely reflected in the other people.
Right.
And so it's kind of a hive mind, but it's more than that.
Yes.
You don't lose your individuality, but you have perfect insight into everybody else. That would dramatically constrain how your choices.
Yes, and how you think, period.
Exactly.
Right.
And so the story centers around a young man who is growing up and has a choice either to join this society or be exiled. And so it's his set of decisions about how he wants to grapple with that after his mother dies. And so that's what kind of kicks it off.
Well, I can't wait to read that.
Thank you.
So, all right, tell us where everyone can find you online.
Thanks. Yeah. So I've created a hub page for all my random stuff, and that's at btmpb.com. So that's Bravo Tango Papa Mike Charlie Bravo.com for anybody who uses those call signs. So btmpb.com, and that will have links to my YouTube channel and Twitter and Facebook and all the things.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Brett.
Thanks for having me, Angel.